In this video, we're going to show you to install brakes on your Toyota Tundra located behind your rear wheels. Using a 21mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, grab your wheel, remove it, and set it aside. We want to go ahead and remove our brake drum itself. We just spray this down with some rust penetrant here to try and loosen this up. Now our drum itself doesn't want to pop off yet, even though it feels loose. You can take the appropriate size bolts and thread these in. Should be 2 of these you can install. Now you will have to source these bolts. Thread these in, and we're going to evenly tighten these bolts, and this is going to be going up against the hub face on the inside, and it's going to work the drum off. Now at this point here, we have our brake drum off. We want to go ahead and clean up all of the brake dust and everything here. Use a can of solvent to spray this down. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. Always good to wear a mask and safety glasses when doing this job. When performing this job, you also want to go ahead and inspect the backing plate itself. Now our backing plate itself is solid, however the little back shield itself is a little bit rusted. That is not going to interfere with the brake job itself. However, you can see in our instance here, this rear brake shoe is flopping around. The spring and retainer has broken from rust over here, so we need to go ahead and repair all of that as well as replacing the shoes. In the center section right here, we have the adjuster wheel, and we have a lot of threads exposed right here. And what this does is it causes the brake shoes to come in and out. Now ours has been sitting for a little while. We're going to spray this down a little bit with some rust penetrant. And then we're going to use a flathead screwdriver. And we want to go ahead and rotate this wheel here. Just kind of work this back and forth, get these threads to loosen up a little bit. So what I'm doing is with this finger here on the back side, there's a little adjuster lock. It's spring loaded. So I'm just going to use my finger and I'm going to push that away from the adjuster wheel. I'm going to rotate this wheel towards me, and it's going to close up the adjuster, making it easier to pull our springs and shoes off. Now our adjuster is fully collapsed, and it does allow us for a little bit more room to work here. Now our spring and posts are completely missing from this side here. This should never be flopping around like this. We're going to go ahead and separate this side here. We're going to use our tool to remove our springs. I'm just going to mark on our old shoes where our springs are going to. Not always necessary, but there are a lot of small intricate parts here. I want to make sure that we install these properly. I'm going to use the spring tool here. It's a simple screwdriver with a notch in it to go ahead and push that spring through. Now if you're going to be replacing this spring, easy enough to do, but we're going to be replacing ours, so pop that off. You have the upper spring right here that does hold a bit of tension, but what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the bottom first. And you notice the spring runs behind this tab, and the spring catches around the backside into the front. Here it is. Remove that spring. Now right here we have the spring cap. So there is a locking pin that runs through the back and has a little cross blade on the front. We're going to go ahead and rotate our cap, which has a notch in it. That will release that. Now you can reach around the back side and hold that pin. You're going to rotate this. It's going to release that cap in the spring. There's also a cap on the back side here. So you have a cap, a spring, and another cap. Here it is. And then push that pin through the back side. And there is our rusty pin. It's probably why the other side broke and fell apart. We're going to be replacing those. You can see how this is assembled. We have this arm here on the pin. We have the adjuster to the left-hand side. We have two portions of the spring here, a smaller portion to the rear, larger portion that lines up with the part of the adjuster here. Then we have the adjuster tab here for the adjuster wheel. And if we spin it over, you can see that the spring itself goes through the notch. Not any of the holes, but it goes through the notch on the back side. And then it comes over here, and it goes through the notch on the other side. So what we're going to do is take our new shoes, line them up with all of our equipment, clean our adjuster, install our new springs, and install our little component here, and this here, and then we're going to clean up our hub face, clean up our backing plate, and install this the same way we had removed it. We're going to stretch it and pull us over. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we set everything up here on our bench, and we have everything organized as far as the way it needs to go. Now you want to focus on the forward pad here, or shoe, and it has a stud facing out. It matches the other side. The rearward shoe has a pin on the back side here for our adjuster tab to slide onto, so you want that to be facing downward. Then we have our equipment set up here, our spring kit and hardware. We have two caps and a spring and a pin. Same thing here. We have the spring here that is going to attach to our adjuster tab over here down to the shoe. Then we have our spring. We have our large green spring. Matches up. We can see that it's going to go through on our notch right here. We have our lower spring. This will probably be installed at right near the end. And we have our horseshoe clip here that is going to go on the top side here. This is what retains this component for our e-brake cable in place to lock that on. So at this point, we can go ahead and start to disassemble this here. If you just rotate this in, we can go ahead and remove our spring. Because our spring is the first part coming out, that'll be the last part going on the top. We have our adjuster here. We can go ahead and focus on this right now. We can see that this threads out. And you want to clean this. Now if you're rusty or anything like that, definitely run it through a wire wheel machine or a brush. This is actually really, really clean. What we may do is just add a little dab of grease to it, but for the most part, this is pretty good. just wipe down our components, do a quick inspection, check for any scaly rust, and well, ours is in pretty good shape. So a little bit of grease, and throw a little bit on the threads as well. Now I'm going to thread this in completely again. That's going to help us on our installation. And then put this back on. Now we don't want it to be a big goopy mess, so go ahead and wipe down any excess. And set that over here. Go ahead and take your forward shoe, slide this off. Inspect this, maybe give it a wipe down. We can go ahead and put this onto the new shoe here. There it is. And then take the rearward, and you can see that it's on the post here, but also locks in on this little notch. So we need to position this, rotate it, slide it off, inspect it. Now if this is rusty or damaged, bent, anything like that, you do need to replace it. Our case, it's in good shape. Install it. And that's good. At this point, our old shoes are done. Bring this over. Go ahead and install this in this notch. This fits around the notch on our shoe as well as the e-brake bracket here. Take our new spring. This does go through on the front side, but it goes underneath and up on the other side. We're going to take our clip, we're going to tap this on. Using a pair of pliers, we do want to bend over these tabs. Just pinch them like so. That's going to lock that bracket into place. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and, before we install this, let's go ahead and clean up our backing plate. Make sure everything is clean, ready for all of our new components. Go ahead and spray it on that backing plate. I'm going to use a bristle brush. I'm trying to clean up any debris that's on this. Now we have our e-brake cable and our activator lever right here. We want to clean this, operate that, and then we want to go ahead and we'll put some lube in there. And just get some on the inside here. We also want to focus on the back side as well. We're going to check that out, make sure everything is operating properly there. We have our cable. Go ahead and work that cable off, inspect it. If the cable looks like it's fraying or pulling apart in any manner, you definitely want to go ahead and replace this. Make sure that the component here is lubed for the cable end. Now if you notice, there is some grease here, but it's not globbed up, just a thin coating. Put that back on. Now our backing plate has a few points of contact for our brake shoes themselves. We want to go ahead and put a little bit of that grease on those contact points. There's 3 here, and then it's going to be same points of contact on the other side. Now we don't want globs of grease, so we're just going to go ahead and smear that a little bit, work that into those points. And our goal here is to go ahead and stretch this over, work this down in a position. Now we have our forward mounted shoe in place. I want to take our pin, feed that through the back and into our shoe right here. Going to install one of our bases. Install the spring. I want to line that up. Push it in and twist that on. Now we just twisted that about a quarter turn so that that lines up and locks in. I'm going to go ahead and bring this shoe up and around and going to install the rear pin. So we use the pry bar here to just work the shoe outward, get the upper portion up into the notch in our piston, and then down below get the shoe behind the rear of this base tab here. Run our cable down underneath, up and over, and drop this down inside. Now our adjuster tab here had popped off while we were going to install everything. Go ahead, feed that up, push that through right here. You can see the lock tab come through. There we go. Install the pin. Ideally, I like to get the pin either facing vertical or horizontal. Really doesn't matter, that way there when you install the caps. You can get that to line up. Line up that slot vertical. Push it on and rotate. There we go. I'm going to install our spring here. It needs to go underneath the shoe and underneath that tab there. Now the spring itself has 2 different shapes of hooks. One is more of a sharp and this one is more of a hoop. The hoop one goes through the brake shoe itself. I'm going to put our hook in through the back of the brake shoe. We'll hold that. go. You notice up here, right inside here, we have our tab. We do want that to engage right there. All right, our adjuster is working. And you notice here that our e-brake cable is a little loose. As we tighten this here, it'll tighten up on our e-brake cable. Let's go ahead and install our lower spring. Now this lower spring comes in from behind, comes around the back here, and then it has to come up and into this notch. Here it is. I'm going to adjust our wheel and make sure that our shoes are in place. Make sure everything is centered. Now we're going to go ahead and test fit our drum, and we want to check our spacing between our brake shoes and our drum. Now I'm going to take our drum, line it up. And at this point here, I cannot install that drum. I adjusted the adjuster too far out, but we can go ahead and adjust that back. Slide that drum on. This brake is rotating just fine. Our other side is dragging, so we're going to have to replace those there. But by using the pry bar here, we can get some leverage on it and just go ahead and rotate this. And this does feel good. Now, if you do need to adjust those brake shoes, you can go ahead and use the adjuster wheel and adjust that accordingly so that you just have a little bit of play there. Otherwise, this side here is complete. You can go ahead and repeat this process for the driver's side. Install your wheels, take it for a road test. Take your wheel, line it up on the studs. Go ahead and get all of your lug nuts started by hand, and then we'll go ahead and snug them down. Go ahead and torque down your lug nuts to 83 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.